that sound. Hello lovely people, how are you all doing today? I hope you're well. I've got peas to pod, hurrah! Now, some of you may be thinking, hang on Vivi, you haven't grown any peas this year. You're quite right. These were sort of a gift, a quid pro quo. We are going to get cooking shortly, but I have to pod them all first. And of course, I'll be keeping all my pods to make pea pod soup. Waste not, want not. Actually, it's a really lovely soup. It's very, very light, very delicate, but it's perfect for a nice summer soup during this. Sorry, I'm saying a lot. I'm just sort of, my head's all over the place. I'm hot. I need a bit of fan. There's a beautiful breeze that's been blowing through this afternoon. It's quite late in the afternoon now. I'm back from the garden, but there's been a gorgeous breeze. However, I've had to shut the window for filming because it is noisy. So I'm using my gorgeous paper fan, paper and bamboo, that I picked up last summer in one of the local charity shops. What a great find. I picked it up actually just before the crazy 42 degrees heat wave last year, thank goodness. So yes, it's quite warm in here with those windows shut, but we'll carry on. And once we get into the kitchen, that window is open. So yes, this is the lovely time of year when visits to the garden are starting to mean that I'm coming home with my first bits and bobs of food. Not a huge amount, obviously, certainly not from my own garden, but there's been so much swapping and sharing going on recently. I love it. You know, it is really, I know I've said it before, but it really is one of the things that I love about gardening in a communal space, is how everybody just looks out for and looks after everyone else. At least it seems to be on this site that I'm on. I know folk have said in comments before, you know, oh, my site's not like that. I wish folk were like that on my site. They're just not. Yeah, I think I just got really lucky. So there's been quite a bit of swapping going on, and I think some of the food, and sometimes it's not even a swap, it's just a straight give. And I think the thing with the foodie stuff, the produce, it's rather like with seedlings. You know how it is in sort of April, then into May, and even into June sometimes. We may plant 30 seeds in the hope of nurturing and developing 15 plants, for example. We plant 30 seeds because, well, some of them won't germinate and I want 15 plants and, you know, be on the safe side. And sod's law, we end up with, say, 25 perfectly good, viable little seedlings. And we cannot bear to chuck them on the compost heap. Just can't bear it. I only need 15, I've got 25, but these spare 10, I just can't bear to get rid of them. You know, these little plants, they want to go, they want to do their thing. And so we start asking our friends, hey, do you need some spare tomatoes? I've got some spare tomato seedlings, do you need some? And so it goes on throughout spring. And like I said, it's not even necessarily a straight swap. I may give, not really so much this year, it's been very different this year, but historically I may say, I've got some spare tomato plants and I give them to X. X has some spare brassica plants and they give them to Y. Y has some spare pepper plants, they give them to Z. Z has got some spare lettuce seedlings and they give them to me. So yeah, it's not like I'm sort of saying, here's some tomato plants in exchange for something. I don't think anyone ever does it in exchange for something else. It's just that thought of, can't bear these seedlings, not to have a life, just give them to someone. Who will take my seedlings and give them a chance of life? Yeah, I love it. So, you know, this year in the garden, obviously the brassicas from Jamie, not in exchange for anything, they were spare to him. Actually, it was really sweet the day he gave them to me, because he tends to come later in the day than me, and quite often I'm either leaving or getting ready to leave as he's arriving. And on that day, sure enough, I was sort of leaving, and he shouted, "Vivi, do you want some spare brassica seedlings?" So I turned around and sort of came back, and I said, "Oh, I'm not sure, because to be honest, I don't know if I was thinking of like purple sprouting broccoli, for example." And I said, "I don't know if I'll still be here in the late winter into next year, and I wouldn't want to take them and waste them." And he said, "Oh, no, it's for summer brassicas. It's summer cabbages, some tender stem broccoli." Oh, yum, yum, yum. So as soon as he said that, I said, yes, please, thank you. And he handed over this seed tray with the plants in. And he said, "Can I just ask, can you just make sure I get the seed tray back, please?" And of course, I always give the person back their seed tray or pots. I even give back the labels, even if the label's been written on a lolly stick or a bit of a cut up yogurt pot or that sort of thing. I always give things back. And I said, "Yeah, absolutely, of course." I knew why. I could tell why he was sort of particularly specifically mentioning it, is because the seed trays, he'd made his own seed trays from scraps of wood. Really lovely little wooden seed trays, all made by hand. So yes, of course I shall return those. So yes, in terms of plant swapping this year, there's not been much from me to other. There's been nothing from me. Have I given any? I don't think I have. I might have. There's a couple of things I might. Anyway, but that doesn't matter, because that's not how it works. People just give because they want to give, and they want the plants to have a bit of life. And similarly, so it comes to the harvests. I think it's just that thought of, we're getting into that time of year when folk are going away. Whether it's for a week or 2 weeks, folk are going on their holidays. Thank goodness we have had occasional rain to save on watering duties. Gosh, it is humid though. I feel myself getting hotter and hotter by the moment. It's even hotter when I start cooking. Yeah, so I think people just can't bear the thought of fruit in particular rotting on the bushes. So there's been a lot of "please pick while I'm away" sort of thing. So I've come home with a massive punnet of strawberries. Huge, a massive load of strawberries. They came from Jamie, who gave me the brassicas, because they were going away, and the strawberries were really, really ripe. And he said, "Look, please have them, because if you don't, the slugs will, and I can't bear the thought of it." And I said, "Oh, I'm trying to think of what I can swap you for them." I said, I've got some garlic. I've just had the garlic out. Would you like some garlic?" And he said, No, we've got plenty. Just have them." I always try to do a swap. But anyway, so I had a massive punnet of strawberries. They only lasted a couple of days. I scoffed them. I've had some raspberries. There's been a lot of red currants going free. It's never the black currants, it's always the red. I think it's because red currants are so sharp, so tart. You know, you eat one, it's like, it feels like your head's about to turn inside out. Ooh. So most folk I know, when they've got all their red currants, they're generally going to make jam from them. And I don't make jam. It's partly time, faff, I never have that much fruit. But also, it's all that sugar. I just don't really want to be eating all that sugar. But with red currants, it doesn't matter, because I actually really like that mad tartness of them. I'll eat them raw as they are, with all the face sucking to go along with it. In fairness, I tend to eat them in the evening as a little light snack as I'm reading, whatever it is, really late in the evening, so there's no one around to see my face turning inside out. But yeah, so there've been quite a lot of red currants doing the rounds. I also have had some new potatoes. This was so lovely. Oh my goodness, This is one of those, oh, you've just broken my heart with your kindness. The new potatoes came from Gary because I'd been in the garden one day and it wasn't a good day. Not the garden, you know, personal stuff. And I'd gotten quite upset at one point and I'd been a bit tearful and I was red of eye, and as I was leaving, because I walked past Gary's plot, he sort of popped out to say, oh, bye, are you back tomorrow? What's, you know, that sort of thing. He saw my face and he said, oh my goodness, what's happened? What's the matter? So, you know, he's a good friend. I just sat and chatted. He was sweet. He just listened, gave me a couple of hugs, let me get things off my chest. Brilliant. And dried my eyes, went home. Went back to the garden the next day, and again it was towards the end of the afternoon when I was leaving and Gary was arriving. He said, oh, I've got something for you. I mean, he first of all he said, how are you today? How are things? And I said, oh yeah, it's okay. What a sweetheart. He said, right, follow me down his garden path. And he turned to me and he said, you know what, yesterday, he said, if I'd had a packet of Rolos, I'd have given you my last Rolo. Now, I realise that's a cultural reference some of you may not know. Rolos are a sweetie in the UK. Oh, God, they're gorgeous. I actually haven't had Rolos for years. They are yummy though. They're a sort of little chocolate cup, completely covered in chocolate. It's caramel in the middle. So there's a bit of a chew to them, a bit of a melt to them. They are yummy. And they come in a packet it's a sort of gold foil with a paper wrapper. So when you open them, you sort of twist the wrapper down until you get to your last Rolo. Now, the company who make them came up with the most brilliant ad campaign ever. Probably going back into the 80s, I would have thought. Might even be earlier, I'm not sure. But this ad campaign ran for years in different permutations. And the campaign had a very simple strap line. Do you love someone enough to give them your last Rolo? So the idea is, in other words, Rolos are so gorgeous, so yummy, you will not want to share them with anyone. You really, really have to love someone a lot to give them your last Rolo. Great campaign. Anyway, so Gary said to me yesterday, if I'd had my last Rolo, I would have given it to you. And I was like, you're so sweet, that's fine, thank you. He said, so instead of the last Rolo, you're going to have the first of something. What are you talking about? So off I go down the garden path with him. He's got a fork in his hand. We get to the end of his beautifully, immaculately neat rows of potatoes. End of the row, the very first plant, puts the fork in and he says, you're going to have the very first harvest. So it makes me get tearful now thinking about it. So he dug up the first of the new potatoes. Beautiful. I mean, nothing tastes quite as good as a potato when it's straight out of the ground. That earthy, gorgeous, earthy smell. The earth, of course, is really warm and dry at the moment, so it's got a particular smell to it. That gorgeous waxiness of the salad potatoes. It was perfect timing because I can have it with my broad beans. But it was the kindness of the act that got me. And I was saying, no, I can't have your first harvest. You've got to have it. And he said, oh, if it'll make you feel better, I'll dig up another plant. You can have the second one, I'll have the first one, and then you don't have to feel bad about it. It's like, okay. So, yeah, coming home, the last few sessions, you know, laden with goodies. I've had tons of rhubarb. So I've got more than enough for myself in freezers. So I started trading some of it, swapping it for credit for things later on. So I now have enough credit for my next refill of washing up liquid and laundry liquid. Fantastic. But yeah, it's definitely the season now of watering other people's gardens in exchange for picking their raspberries, for example. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Although no one's been asking me to water their gardens. I think they all know that that's more than I can manage. But anyway, the peas are the star of this show, aren't they? It's just, you know, I'm giddy with the simple happiness of that community of people who just love to share, love to give away. Nothing is ever expected in exchange. Everything is always treated as this wonderful, beautiful bonus. It's wonderful. So now with the peas, so these are from Catherine's plot. She's across the way from me. And a few days, oh, let me stretch my knee. A few days ago, she was in the garden. I was down really early, silly o'clock early. Don't like it that early, because we had a spate of a couple of really hot days. I was trying to dig some more ground. It was too hot, so it was like, right, come back really, really early. So there I was, huffing and puffing and sweating, and it was like 7:30 in the morning. It was already feeling a bit too hot. And Catherine appeared. I sort of like, oh, what are you doing here so early? It was a work day. She said, oh, it's just a flying visit. I just need to do a few things, and then I've got to get back. She was working from home that day, had conference calls, what have you. But she said, because the following day she was going to be going, or even that night, did she say which? It doesn't matter. She was going to be going away. She's going over to Europe, where all of the rest of her family live. And it was going to be her mum's 80th birthday, so they were all going to converge at her mum's place and have a big old party. Yay, brilliant. So she was rushing around, you know, she was only there for about an hour, but she was just whizzing. And then I heard, ah! I said, are you okay? So I've just seen the time. I've got to run. Bye. Bye, Catherine. So off she went. And then late that evening, she messaged me, what a dingbat. She had brought some plants with her that morning to plant, squash. She'd completely forgotten in her hurry. So she messaged to say, I've got these plants, can you keep an eye on them? Would you maybe be able to water them? Sorry to ask, da da da. So I said, of course. I said, where? I'll plant them. I'm not going to leave them in pots. I'll plant them. Where were you intending to put them? So she described on her plot where she wanted them to go, and I said, that's fine. I'll do them tomorrow morning. Consider it done. Now you go and pack. Start relaxing. Go and enjoy your little break with the family. And half an hour later, another message came in, and she said, thank you so much. Da, da. She said, by the way, please can you pick some of my peas? There's a load of them ready. Now the thing with peas is you do need to keep on top of the picking. I look like I'm milking a goat. That's not how you milk a goat. You need to keep picking them, and it helps to encourage the plant to keep producing. So she was, she basically said, look, you'd be doing me a favour if you pick up, you know, a load of the peas that are ready. Do me a favour. And also as a thank you with the squash, I say, well, you don't need to do that, but thank you. I will have a few of the peas, and hopefully that will keep your plants going for you. So that's what I've got with me today. Oh. Now, last couple of pods to go, and then I promise we will get cooking. The recipe I'm going to do today, and like I said, I'll be saving my pods and making a very light soup with them. The hardest thing about this recipe that I'm going to do today, definitely the hardest part of it, is not eating the peas as they get podded. I haven't eaten a single one. Have you noticed? I've been really good. Not a single one in my chops. Got to try one though, haven't I? Gorgeous. That one I just had, just getting a little tiny bit tough. So I think what I did when I picked, I picked from the bottom. It's the perfect way to pick, isn't it? You start at the bottom and the top continues to develop. Actually, talking of the top for this recipe, having some pea shoots, some of the tops with it would be great. However, I'm not going to do that. They're not my plants. I don't want to cut the tops off and stunt their growth. But anyway, so I think I've just caught them at exactly the right time. So in terms of, you know, I'll be cooking them anyway. So that, and I've just dropped one on the floor. I can see it, I'll grab it in a second. That won't matter. But that gorgeous taste, it's just going around, and the smell is sort of hitting the back, and I'm picking it up here. Beautiful sweetness, of course. But I think the thing with peas is, if you ever were trying to describe a colour as taste or a taste as colour, peas taste green, don't they? I mean, it's bonkers. I don't know. You know what I mean, don't you? I'm sure you all agree that peas actually taste green. If it was completely mashed and mushed and put into a different texture and you didn't know what you were eating and you tasted that and someone said to you, what colour does that taste like? You'd say, that's green. You wouldn't say red or yellow, it's green. Gorgeous. So the recipe I'm going to do is a gorgeous pea risotto. Now, when I was picking them, I was thinking, I'm just going to eat them raw. I love raw peas. They are a gorgeous snack. But then I thought, you know what? I've actually got a couple of ingredients in the house at the moment, which I don't normally have, and they help to make a risotto perfect. If I didn't have these ingredients, and I'll talk through this when we cook in a second, if I didn't have the ingredients, that's fine. I would make a risotto anyway, but I'd just substitute them. But oops, that one is really quite, actually that one's on its way to being dry. Can you make out? It really is an old one. I'm not going to use the peas from that, but I'm going to put that in the pea pod soup, and they'll all help to flavour it. Nearly there, nearly. And the other thing is, I think I've probably not got, they're going everywhere suddenly, I've probably not got quite enough peas, so I'm going to grab a handful of my broad beans, and I'm going to chuck those into, just to bulk up numbers. So I have nearly done podding. I've got 2 left, that's 1, just this last one. So let's get to the kitchen and let's go through all the ingredients we need, and then let's get cooking. And let's go and stand by the window and get a bit of that breeze without the traffic noise from the front. Let's have a little look at the ingredients then. I don't tend to do things by weights and measures, but I'll try and give you a guesstimate. It's not like baking, you know, baking we have to be really accurate. I think cooking like this, it's more of a chuck it in, do what you want. However, roughly speaking, I've got, and this will make about 4 portions, I've got risotto rice, about 350 grams of risotto rice. I've got, and this is something I don't normally have, I've got in there, it's about 150, I don't want to tip it up, 150 mils of white wine. That was left over from a little thing at the plot the other day. Up to 250 mils you could put in, but I've only got that much, about 150. I've got my powdered stock, dried stock, ready to make up. I will make up about 1.5 litres. Yes, I do make my own fresh stock from time to time, but not at the moment because I've got no veggies in the garden to make any stock with. Then, the star of the show is the peas. I wanted about 300 grams of veggies, of peas. I didn't have enough, so I've also done a little bit of broad beans to make it up. These have been second skinned. I've left this one with its skin on, so you can see how it's pretty ugly and unappetizing, isn't it? These, I should have said I've cooked the veggies as well. So the broad beans had about 7-8 minutes of a boil, and then I quickly shoved the peas on the top in the steamer for about 3 minutes. They really don't need much more. You can see that's pretty unappetizing. That skin is tough, it's bitter. So look, I accept that it's fiddly to sort of second skin, double skin the broad beans, but it's well worth it for the taste. I'll skin this one in a second and add it to that lot. So 350 grams of rice, about 300 grams of veggies. Then, again, what I don't often have, I've got some butter at the moment, so I'll use about 50 grams of butter. So the things I don't normally have, wine and butter. Wine you could leave out, butter you could substitute and use olive oil instead. You'd make it vegan using olive oil as well. Then an onion, that's going to get chopped, and then last but not least I've got this bit of parmesan. Again, if you don't have any parmesan, or if you've got a vegan in the house, you can substitute it and use instead these Angevita nutritional yeast flakes, and they have a slightly, that's how they look, see on the cover, as it says, a cheesy nutty flavour, so you could use that instead of parmesan. But I happen to have some parmesan, so I'm going to use the parmesan. And at the moment I happen to have some butter, so I'm going to use the butter, and I happen to have leftover wine. I was very tempted to drink it. I'm not going to drink it, I'm going to put it in the risotto instead. So let's start putting this gorgeousness together. I've made a start without you, just to get the boring bit underway. But oh my goodness, the smell already. It's the butter, because I can't remember the last time I made risotto with butter. The smell of butter and the onions softening in it is just, I'd take that and put it on toast and have it. So the butter's gone in, I chunked it into smaller chunks, get it melted. The onion is chopped quite fine because it's not going to have any other processing. And I think the thing with the risotto is I don't want things to compete, like a great big chunk of onion to compete with the other veggies in it. Also, I should have said that this will be gorgeous with asparagus. However, asparagus seems to be the one vegetable that is never going spare in the garden. I think plots, yeah, a lot of my friends grow asparagus, but they never get a huge amount. Our plots are too small. Okay, so the butter melted, the chopped onions have gone in and they've sweated down a bit. And you know, this is essentially the way pretty much every single risotto ever starts. Fat, butter or oil, your onion, bit of piquancy. Sometimes I might put garlic in. I don't want to put garlic in today. I don't want to overwhelm, because the peas and the broad beans have, I mean, they're quite a light taste, a very delicate taste. I mean, we know what they are, but I don't overwhelm them. So the rice has gone in, and now giving it a really good stir around. And you'll always hear this when chefy folk talk about making a risotto. At this stage, really good stirring, because what you want to do is coat all the grains of rice in that lovely melted butter, or olive oil if you're using olive oil. Get them all good and coated. Now, on the back of the stove, I've got my stock that I've made up. I've made up about 1.5 litres, that should do me, and that's going to be added gradually. So that's on a really, really low heat, tiny, tiny heat. It's just keeping that stock warm towards hot, because as we add it, we don't want to add cold stock each time, because if we're adding cold stock each time, that's taking the temperature of the cooking pan down again. It's got to come back to temp. So yeah, the stock is prepared and it's on a really low heat. So rice has gone in now, it's all coated. Now's the time to add, if you have any, the wine. So like I said, you could add up to about sort of 250 mils. This is about 150. That's quite a lot of liquid. I'm sorry, I can't get you closer to show you the liquid. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for the rice to absorb all that liquid of the alcohol. Once that's absorbed, I will start adding a ladle full of the stock at a time. So add a couple of ladles, wait for the rice to absorb it all, add a couple more, wait for it to all absorb, and so on. So this bit now, it will probably take 15 or 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, it's weird smelling the wine in there. I haven't cooked with wine for a long time. Like I said, make a risotto without wine. It doesn't have to have it, but it's like the perfect risotto if it is. Yeah, so this next bit is going to take about 15 or 20 minutes. And you might think, oh, for goodness sakes, I haven't got that kind of time. You can do a risotto in the oven, all the ingredients in together in the oven. I think Richard and Paul do an oven version. I won't because it's so expensive to run the oven. Some folk, even if it's a stovetop method, they'll add all the liquid all at once. And again, I don't, because the rice always performs slightly differently. And if I just put all the liquid in at once, I might end up with a risotto that's just too sloppy. I don't want slop. I want to, you know, get it on my spoon without, you know. So I like to add it a bit at a time, and that way I get the rice to the perfect consistency for my taste, which is creamy and fat and plump, but still with a bit of bite. Good stuff. So, like I said, this process is going to take a little while. I can get on with a couple of other things in the meantime. So, if you remember, I showed you with the veggies, that's now the cooked peas and broad beans in together. Broad beans second skinned. And I've siphoned off about a third of the peas. And they're going to... Oh, I'm walking really stiffly. I'm really stiff today. Oh my goodness, I'm just... yeah. It's been quite full on in the garden recently. Chucking the peas in the blender, and I'm going to add a ladle of stock to it. That's all. I might need a little bit more stock. My lovely ladle, it's gorgeous, but it's not, doesn't hold a huge amount. And I'm just going to blitz these down to a puree, which I'm going to add into the risotto at the end. So it's going to get noisy. I won't do it on the camera. This is the stage I'm not going to film because it will get really, really boring. Adding stock, absorb, add stock, absorb, add stock, absorb. While that's happening, I'm going to blitz about a third of, it'll be about 100 grams of the veg, of the peas, with a bit of stock. I'm also going to grate my parmesan, do all those things, because that's all going to be added at the end. But I've got to go through this process first. That wine is almost absorbed. The absorption, I always think it seems to get quicker the further into the risotto you go. Still a ways to go with that. I mean, this thing about taking the time to do it, it's 20 minutes or so. For me, actually, yeah, the standing's a bit naughty these days. I might get one of those perching stools. But in terms of it taking quite a while, I love it because I know we're all fantastically busy all the time. We're all busy all the time. I know that. Human beings, and we're human doings, aren't we? But it's one point in the day to say, you know what, no, I'm going to slow down. This is my food. This is really important. This is me nourishing myself. I am not going to let my boss interrupt me doing this, or whatever. All those stresses of the day. To stand over the stove for sort of, well, in terms of doing a bit of the veg prep and doing this, the whole thing to plate is probably going to take an hour. That's with podding peas. Maybe if you were using frozen peas, use frozen peas, it works just as well because you're going to cook the peas first anyway. That would knock 20 minutes. Let's say it's 40 minutes. It's 40 minutes of my day that is all about slowing down, nourishment, pushing back all the kind of the negative parts of the day, letting them go on, out the window. It's almost like a little bit of a meditation. So I'm happy to do it. And now, of course, there are some days where one is just absolutely exhausted and wouldn't want to do that. First ladle full going in. But that's why I'm cooking 4 portions. Because tomorrow, let's say tomorrow I come home from the garden and I'm really tired, I'll just grab a portion out of the fridge and warm it on the stove. I have frozen it in the past. It freezes okay. I mean, it works. Freeze it, a couple of weeks later, pull a portion out, defrost it in the fridge overnight. Later that evening, heat it up to eat it. It's perfectly edible. It's just not as gorgeous and looks creamy as it is the first bowlful that comes out of it when it's cooked in real time, as it were. Right, I'm waffling. See, that's what happens when you make risotto. Do you know what? It's a really lovely thing to make, I think, if you've got friends over. If you've got a big enough kitchen to have your friends sitting in the kitchen with you. Because once you've done all the chopping and bits, you don't really have to concentrate on it. You can talk to your friends, listen to how was your day, what's going on in their lives as you quietly pour a ladleful, stir, pour, stir. Right, come back in a few minutes when all the pouring and the stirring's done, and we'll put the last little bit together. Oh, we're just about done. Can you get a sense of sort of how creamy it is, how plumped up these grains of rice are? Oh, yum scrum diddly umptious. I'm just going to turn the heat off now because that's all combined, expanded, general loveliness. Now, here's my little bit of the peas I slightly pureed with a bit of the what do you call it, stock. I'm going to combine these now. Doing this, it just helps to infuse the whole risotto with that lovely pea taste, so that if you get a mouthful of risotto that doesn't have a pea in it, you should still get the taste. I think, I'm trying to remember, this is a recipe that's being used a lot, and I can't remember whether it was originally from Prue Leith, the vegetarian Bible, or it might have been BBC Good Food. They used to do a vegetarian page, and now for the other veg, it should all be peas, like I said, but, well, I wasn't going to raid Catherine's entire harvest. So just give that a nice stir in, combine it all. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to eat. So at this stage as well, if you wanted to add seasonings, salt, pepper, I never add salt to my food, and I actually use a reduced salt stock. I think there's enough salt in the vegetables, and frankly, after years and years and years of not adding salt, I don't miss it. But if you like salt, pepper, whatever, now is the time. So I've got a load of Parmesan here. I'm going to hold some back for serving. Now get this a lot combined. Oh, yum, yum, yum. And that's what I was meaning when I was saying about for serving it. I mean, it's such pretty colour anyway. But when it comes to serving, if you have any pea shoots, I mean, you could start some pea shoots on your windowsill, I suppose, couldn't you? But having them from the garden to serve, to make it look extra yummy in the bowl. Now, what I'm going to do for now is, the heat is off. I'm just going to pop the lid back on. I'm going to just let it sit for 5 minutes or so, let it all meld together, and then serve it up and scarf it in about 2 minutes. Oh yes, high time. Now, how hungry are you all? I am quite hungry. Yummy. Ooh, let's be chefy. So that's not even a full portion. If I have that size of a portion, that will make 6 portions, just eyeballing it. Oh my goodness. How gorgeous does that look? Come on, let's scoff. Oh my goodness. How gorgeous does that look? I'm diving in. Oh, boiling. It is The temperature is sort of, it's not hot, it's sort of mid-20s, but high humidity again. It kind of seems a bit bonkers to be cooking in this weather, but oh, that is the taste of summer. Oh, it's what I wish I could share. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I mean, it's so simple, really simple. And like I said, right back at the beginning, if you don't have butter, use olive oil. If you don't have wine, never mind. It will still be gorgeous. I think risotto is a I love risotto. It's a great way of, especially if there's, if you've got quite a few leftover veg in the fridge, or if you're picking from your allotment or your kitchen garden and you're getting small handfuls, like you've only got 3 or 4 asparagus spears, you've got a handful of peas, a handful of broad beans, great, whack them all together in a risotto. Don't think, oh, I've only got, a cupful of peas, that's not enough to do anything with, oh, I'll just put them on the side of the Sunday roast and they're all, gone. Think about risotto. I think it's, oh my goodness, I've had this packet of risotto rice was in the back of the cupboard. I don't know how long it's been there, still in date. I don't know how much risotto rice is costing these days, but in terms of the bulk, I don't think it's too bad for the cost. And then if the rest of the veggies are coming from the garden, and what I love, what I love is when the pea pops in your mouth. Oh my goodness, right. Sorry, it's rude of me if I carry on and you don't even have any, isn't it? So, phew, I'm boiling. I really want to go and get my face in the trough and scoff the rest of that. I might come back for seconds. I'm really hungry today. The rest of it, that will be great. I'll pop it in the fridge. It'll be fantastic in the next couple of days when I come home from the garden. And you know what? I won't mind having it, every day for the next 3 or 4 days, because it is so lovely. And let's face it, I don't know when I'll have peas again. So this might be my only pea risotto for the entire year. It might be my only peas for the entire year. So yeah, I don't mind having it every day. I'm gonna love it. Right, I wanna eat, so I'm gonna say cheerio to all of you. I hope those of you who do have an allotment, kitchen garden, whatever it is, I hope you're beginning to get the first of your harvests coming in now. And I'm sure if you do garden communally, like I do, I'm sure you're starting to swap and you're gifting each other, and you probably have raspberries in your fridge, even as we speak, that came from a plot neighbour because you've been watering for them, for example. I bet there's some of you with that. Alright lovelies, I'll see you all again really soon, but in the meantime, happy harvesting, and more importantly, happy cooking and really happy scoffing. Cheerio.